Mary had a little man.
Blah, blah, blah.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
At one point in 2016, when he was first running for office, Donald Trump said this: "I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters." That quote came to mind last week when audio from Trump advisor Steve Bannon surfaced from October 31st, 2020, just a few days before the presidential election. Let's listen.
And what Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory. But that doesn't mean he's the winner. He's just going to say he's the winner. The Democrats, more of our people vote early that count. Theirs voted mail. And so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and Trump's going to take advantage of that. That's our strategy. He's going to declare himself a winner. So when you wake up Wednesday morning, it's going to be a firestorm. Also, if Trump is losing by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, it's going to be even crazier. No, because he's going to sit right there and say they stole it. If Biden's winning, Trump is going to do some crazy.
And of course, 4 days later, President Trump declared victory when his own campaign advisors told him he had absolutely no basis to do so. What the new Steve Bannon audio demonstrates is that Donald Trump's plan to falsely claim victory in 2020, no matter what the facts actually were, was premeditated.
Ooh. And just now, Steve Bannon was found guilty by a jury of his peers. I don't know if they were really his peers or not, because they didn't show the jury. And unless they were wearing like 9 different shirts all at the same time, they're not his peers. But they just found him guilty of contempt of Congress. So failure to appear and failure to produce the documents that were subpoenaed. Now, we don't know whether or not he'll go to jail. We're waiting to find out whether or not well, of course, the prosecution, kept it nice and simple. They explained it as if, you got a traffic ticket. They said to the jury, listen, if you get a traffic ticket and you don't believe that you were cited properly, what do? You go to court, right? And if the court then says that you were cited properly, and so we are saying that this was a valid ticket, then you have to pay it. And that is the end of the line for you, right? And so they explained it that way to the jury, who were sitting there because they had been summoned to appear for jury duty. And I told you yesterday, I thought that would make complete and total sense to a jury. So it was short, it was sweet, it was, a 5-minute trial because it's a 5-minute issue. Now comes the contretemps. Now comes the long ass haul, right? Because I doubt very much that the judge is going to remand Steve Bannon to jail pending sentencing. Now, sentencing in trials, and this is a criminal trial. This is a criminal contempt, a contempt of Congress. It's a federal trial in D.C. in a federal with a federal judge presiding and a jury. But sentencing is usually 3 months later. 3 months later. So what you want to watch for now is to see whether or not the judge actually remands Steve Bannon to jail, to prison, pending the sentencing. I doubt it. Because the minimum for not appearing, the minimum is 30 days. The maximum is a year, and he's been found guilty on 2 counts. So it's a year and a year. But obviously, he won't do 2 years. The judge will probably make the sentences run together. So a year is what's possible, I believe. But he's going to appeal, as you know. And so I doubt very much that the judge is going to say, okay, you go to jail, cool your heels, you're a disgrace, you're covering up something that led to an enormous amount of destruction and violence and the death of 5 people. So I'm going to remand you to prison. I doubt it. But I'm waiting. I'm waiting just like everybody else. We're waiting to find out. Now, last night, that was mentioned in the hearing to show that Donald Trump not only premeditated the attack on the Capitol and not only wanted it to happen, but actually refused to let it end, because until he knew, which is what I told you yesterday and the day before and the day before that, that Donald Trump only let it end, only told people to go home, not just under duress and pressure from everybody around him, but he only agreed to tell people to go home half-heartedly when he understood that his violence wasn't going to win the day. It was like he didn't order them to go home as much as he ordered them to stand back, stand by for more, detailed orders, or, for another regrouping. It was a retreat, basically, which is what, we all knew. And those of us who've been watching this and it's not a tourist. These weren't tourists. Okay, this wasn't, just a few people who, got out of control. This was planned, and it was led by militia groups. They were armed. They were in trees. They brought weapons. There were pipe bombs outside the Democratic National Committee headquarters where Kamala Harris was. I mean, this was a real violent attack, an attempt to overthrow the government, the free and fair election, to keep power, to stay in the White House. Now, we've never had that before, ever, in this country. We've never seen it before. And so no one knows what the correct response to it ought to be, unless you're me and you. We're very clear that man and his minions have to go to jail. And so now we have Steve Bannon, but on a smaller charge. We have Steve Bannon being found guilty for contempt of Congress, meaning he is covering up what Roger Stone was doing that day. I mean, it's like that scene in The Godfather when the Senate finally hears, the Michael Corleone's testimony. And just ahead of Michael Corleone's testimony, you have Frankie Five Angels, and you have, another guy who was a hitman. And they said, oh, so did Michael Corleone ever tell you directly to, push a button on a guy, to have some guy killed? And he said, no, he never told me directly. It came through other people. And he said, so like he had, the Godfather had buffers. Yeah, he had a lot of buffers, Senator. It's exactly what's going on here. This is exactly how he ran his administration, like a mob boss. And so Steve Bannon is one of those buffers. Roger Stone is one of those buffers. Now, a lot of people around Donald Trump obviously got name-checked last night, and they all knew that this was premeditated. They all knew what they were supposed to do that day. In fact, Mitch McConnell knew what was going to happen that day, because Mitch McConnell was trying to keep the Republican caucus, his senators, from agreeing to contest the slate of electors. Now, you know that the House of Representatives and the Senate is allowed to contest electors from any state they want, but you need one House member and you need one senator to both agree. And McConnell understood that was going to happen on January 6th because he told his caucus, don't do it. Don't sign on to these crazy House Republicans, 147 of them. Don't do it. But, Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, trying to cement their bona fides as Trump loyalists with their voters, decided to buck their leadership. And, as you know, Josh Hawley objected to Pennsylvania's slate of electors, and Ted Cruz did too. Now, Josh Hawley, when he saw the crowd, the violent crowd, when he was walking past the violent crowd, the insurrectionists who were preparing to invade the Capitol, he did the fist pump, as you know. And he did that to, cement his solidarity with the violent ones. But what we didn't know was that when it actually came to pass, when the violence actually ensued, Josh Hawley fled like a little bitch. I think Josh Hawley left skid marks. I swear to God, if the people of Missouri reelect Josh Hawley, Missouri needs to be put on probation.
all things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
He's fleeing the Capitol. He's fleeing the Capitol. Here he is. Look at him. Look at that little girl run. Let's do it in slow-mo. I tell you, the January 6th Select Committee, look, and here he is running down the stairs. Look at the form. Look at that. It's like real running stuff. The cherry on the cake of my day, though, was the press room last night when they showed Josh Hawley running away. This was hysterical. Watch. He will never be president of the United States, so mission accomplished there, right? Josh Hawley will never be president of the United States of America because he ran like a schoolgirl. He ran like a little boy.
Why would you ever have to run like that from peaceful tourists?
Right.
I don't understand.
I mean, it's just so bizarre. It's so crazy. But, you know, he has just disqualified himself from ever being presidential material. And I promise you, even in his obituary, it will mention that he ran away on January 6th, 2020. It will be mentioned to the day after he dies. I mean, it is just so unbelievable. But the testimony last night was, listen, for people who pay attention, I think everybody knew this, but for people who don't, who really thought that they were tourists or it was Antifa or whatever lies were told by right-wing media, whether or not they watched, I don't know. But if they did, they now know that this was a violent attempted coup that was premeditated by the President of the United States of America. And that is something we have never, ever seen in these United States of America, including during the Civil War. We've never seen violence like this. We've never heard of people literally going into the Capitol trying to stop what is obviously a ceremony. That's all it was. But it's an official proceeding of Congress. There was a conspiracy to do it. That is a criminal offense. The conspiracy to commit, sedition or insurrection, obviously. And you know what's crazy? The cover-up. I mean, the idea that when they were explaining what actually happened last night, when Elaine Luria was at first explaining that within 11 minutes, Donald Trump was back at the White House and he already knew that the violence had begun, and he decided to go to his dining room and sit there for freaking 3 hours watching Fox News. I mean, it was amazing. But what was really creepy about it, and nobody seems to have, nobody really wants to tell you about it, but I do, that not only didn't he intervene, but there's no entries in the White House call logs. And there's no entry in the daily presidential diary. And you know who's in charge of that? You know who is? The Secret Service. Something so strange has gone on here with the Secret Service. They have turned into the real SS. They've turned into the president's, goon squad. The idea that they now have gotten themselves private attorneys. Let me explain this to you. The Secret Service, they have attorneys. You understand? They're government employees, and if there's there's some sort of a subpoena or whatever, they could usually get representation from the government itself to answer any subpoenas, to answer any appearances, to help them through it. The appearance of this is that the Secret Service itself is so conflicted with Tony Ornato and with this Bob Engel, who was in charge of Donald Trump that day. He was the lead guy on the president's detail, that they had to go out and get private attorneys. Tells you everything you need to know about who did what and whether or not it was a cover-up. I mean, it's an amazing story, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But all these buffers, the Steve Bannons and the Michael Flynns and the Roger Stones and the Rudy Giulianis and the Sidney Powells and the crazy people that let them into the White House, this Ziegler guy, he's a low-level staffer. I don't know if you know about his story, but he was called to testify. He didn't want to testify. He was screaming and yelling, and as soon as he got done, he went and on this racist, crazy rant, saying they're Bolsheviks and this is because they hate white people. I mean, just real sick, twisted stuff that just emanated from this White House. And some people are looking at the people who testified, like Cassidy Hutchinson and this girl last night and, Sarah Matthews and this Pottinger guy as being heroic. Let me tell you something. That Pottinger guy, he was there from day one. He was there at the very beginning of this disgusting presidency, of this lawless presidency. And he was witness to every damn lawless thing that president had done. And he said nothing, absolutely nothing, until he saw the violence. And then all of a sudden he testifies last night, well, when I saw the tweet about Mike Pence and I had known that there was a riot that was already, and they were targeting Mike Pence, that's when I said, okay, I've had enough. No, it's not bravery or courage or his ex-Marine-ness that makes him say, oh, the oath matters and, we'll never have a democracy or a peaceful country if lawlessness like that. No, you know what it was? He knew the same thing that Trump knew, that it wasn't working. That it wasn't going to work, that mission failed. That's what they knew. They knew that the violence was not going to produce the result. But they were all willing to do the violence. They were all willing to go along with it. They were all willing to watch it happen. They were all willing to sit around all day. And now they're telling us these patriotic stories of how this emboldened our enemies.
Our national security was harmed in a different way by the 6th of January, and that is that it, I think it emboldened our enemies by helping give them ammunition to feed a narrative that our system of government doesn't work, that the United States is in decline. China, the Putin regime in Russia, Tehran, they're fond of pushing those kinds of narratives, and by the way, they're wrong. We've been hearing for the entirety of U.S. history from kings and despots that the United States is in decline, and those kings and despots have been proven wrong every single time. But nonetheless, January 6th helped feed a perception that I think emboldens our adversaries.
Shut up. Shut up. You actually sat there as a national security advisor under Michael Flynn, okay, knowing Michael Flynn was a QAnon maniac and said nothing, and watched this president trash our institutions, literally burrow the worst people into the Secret Service, turn that into a political thing. You watch them just literally just steal, I don't know what else to say, capture the Supreme Court of the United States of America. You watch this president lie every single damn day to the American people, to the world. You watch this president have private meetings in the Oval Office with Sergei Lavrov, okay, and Russians without any note takers. And I remember when I first explained note takers, people in this audience, the Republicans, what's a note taker? I mean, they don't even realize that records, daily diaries must be kept.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844.
Building, hold. Turn that door up. If we're moving, we need to move now.
Copy.
If we lose any more time, we may lose the ability to leave. So if we're going to leave, we need to do it now.
They've gained access to the second floor, and I've got public about 5 feet from me down here below.
Okay, copy. They are on the second floor, moving in now. We may want to consider getting out and leaving now. Copy.
Will we encounter the people once we make our way?
Repeat.
Encounter any individuals if we made our way to the.
There's 6 officers between us and the people that are 5 to 10 feet away from me.
Stand by. I'm going down to evaluate.
Go ahead.
We have a clear shot if we move quickly. We got smoke downstairs set by unknown smoke set downstairs by the protesters.
Is that route compromised?
We have this secure. However, we will bypass some protesters that are being contained. There is smoke, unknown, what kind of smoke it is? Copy?
Clear, we're coming out now, all right? Make a way.
There they go. And, you know, Mike Pence never showed up. I cannot believe this entire administration. The gross nature of these posers, of these man babies, of these children, of these evil babies. Pence never showed up to testify. I mean, all this last night was about the premeditated attempt to capture or take Mike Pence out of the Capitol to prevent the certification of the election from going forward, right? That's the whole story of last night. And that the president was watching it on television for 3 hours, choosing not to do anything, but actually tweeting at critical moments that Mike Pence let him down, literally tweeting it as he was watching it on Fox News, that they had breached the Capitol and they were going to find Mike Pence and they wanted to get Nancy Pelosi and they were going to kill her too. And the president then tweeted, you know, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to spawn, you know, to egg him on, to make sure that they went and got Mike Pence. It's a very sick, twisted story. And yet, Mike Pence doesn't even bother to show up and testify. And now the two of them are out in Arizona today, each trying to elevate their preferred candidate for governor. It's just such a sick system they got over there on the Republican side of things. It's just so twisted. They are all just so bizarre and ugly. And, you know, Holly is just a little girl, which is an insult to little girls. You know, like left skid marks in his panties there, running away from what he had actually, you know, egged on, from a situation that they all helped create. Now, we got a call from an angry man in Idaho who was just very rude just now to Brett. But I had hoped he would hold on because he was going to compare this violent insurrection, this attempt at killing the vice president of the United States of America while the president sat in his dining room tweeting to the crowd that was going to do the deed to go ahead and do it in coded language, that is somehow the same as when Maxine Waters objected to the election in 2016 and could not find one single senator to join her in the objection. And so nothing happened, right? There was no consideration at all of her objection. But he wanted to call. He wanted to say that, you know, they prevented the certification in 2016. No, that didn't happen. Look it up. There was not one single Democratic senator that would join Maxine Waters in the House objecting to anybody's electoral their slate of electors. No one. People are just so dumb in this country. I don't know if they're just dumb or if they have, mismemories, or they think this has happened regularly. I mean, what the hell world are you living in that you think you've seen this before? What are you smoking, snorting, drinking, injecting? What are you shooting? What? This never happened before, ever. And then to be lied to about it by people whose lives were actually in danger that day, who ran away like the little bitches they are, for them to still object, for them to still refuse to accept that we had a free and fair election after 61 judges, some of them Trump appointees, said there is no evidence that there was fraud in this election that would change the result. But we do have tapes of the president calling freaking secretaries of state, telling him to find him 11,000 votes. Give me a break, man. Crazy. This is what happens when trash becomes the president of the United States. This is what happens when you vote for garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. He's garbage. He's the lowest of the lowlifes. He is a miscreant. He is a man baby. He is a mob boss, who can't even boss the mob. The mob turns on him every single time, except for like 3 people. Rudy Giuliani, Michael Flynn, who's insane. He's certifiable. That man is totally insane. And Roger Stone, who's also like a lunatic, fringy, Nixon tattooed piece of dung. It's so sad. Brother David.
Oh, sister. What a first season conclusion to the single most riveting show of 2022. And there's going to be a second season in September.
Woohoo!
What was that?
Yeah.
As for Josh C. Hawley, all I could think of is, remember the old cartoon, The Perils of Penelope Pitstop?
No.
And when she was running from the villains, well, she would go into this jete thing. And he made me think of that. I was like, okay, that should be your next career move. You need to be a...
He did create a lot of work last night. There was, people just, before the tape even ended, people were setting it to music, And so I bet you the two things that were most Googled last night was Josh Hawley Coward and songs that have running in it.
Oh, the Benny Hill theme, somebody on the chat room. Hi, chat room, you know what to do.
The Benny Hill theme, Chariots of Fire. I thought of Pink Floyd, Run Like Hell. Okay.
That's good. And also Monty Python's Flying Circus.
Excellent. Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song would be great.
Kind of. Yep. When the inevitable TV movie is made of this, I still say the only person who can do justice to Steve Bannon is Rosie O'Donnell. I kid, but here's an interesting factoid that MSNBC came up with today. As of July, the small donor campaign contributions to the Democrats are up to $64 million. The Republicans have dipped down to 26.
Yeah, I read that.
And it's, while there's the corporate and all that still tells me that the people are involved and the people are coming.
Yes, and 25% of the electorate are over 65, and only 49% of them still support Trump. So he's cooked for all intents and purposes. Now we have to hold him accountable for the violence and the mayhem.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Within minutes of stepping off the ellipse stage, Donald Trump knew about the violent attack on the Capitol. From the comfort of his dining room, he watched on TV as the attack escalated. He sent tweets that inflamed and expressed support for the desire of some to literally kill Vice President Mike Pence. For 3 hours, he refused to call off the attack. Donald Trump refused to take the urgent advice he received that day. Not from his political opponents or from the liberal media, but from his own family, his own friends, his own staff, and his own advisors. In the midst of an attack, when there was no time for politics, the people closest to Trump told him the truth. It was his supporters attacking the Capitol, and he alone could get through to them. So they pled for him to act, to place his country above himself. Still, he refused to lead and to meet the moment to honor his oath. It was only once the vice president and the members of Congress were in secure locations and the officers defending the Capitol began to turn the tide that then President Trump engaged in the political theater of telling the mob to go home.
Right.
And even then, he told them all they were special and that he loved them. Whatever your politics, whatever you think about the outcome of the election, we as Americans must all agree on this. Donald Trump's conduct on January 6th was a supreme violation of his oath of office and a complete dereliction of his duty to our nation.
There is no doubt. I mean, the guy actually participated in involuntary manslaughter. I mean, the idea that he was throwing fuel on the fire to kill Mike Pence. And this is the fact that really needs to be in every single American's mind. that it was only after Mike Pence was in a secure location, it was only after the president knew that his plan could not win the day. It was only after Mike Pence was back in on the floor, hours later, certifying the election, that Donald Trump understood that he failed with his violent plan. And so the next day, this is where we saw the outtakes last night, the blooper reel. The next day, Ivanka apparently talked him into making some sort of a tape to soothe the American people after this violent attack that he organized, that he invited, that he was cheering for, that he was rooting for, that he wanted the vice president of the United States dead so that he could hold on to power. And it was only after he knew that his plan had failed that he decided, okay, I'll make some sort of a tape and I'll tell the American people. But he would not say that the election was over. He wouldn't say it.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack yesterday. And to those who broke the law, you will pay. You do not represent our movement. You do not represent our country. And if you broke the law, you can't say that. I'm not gonna, I already said you will pay. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defied the seat of justice. It's defiled, right? See, I can't see it very well.
Oh.
Okay, I'll do this. I'm going to do this. Let's go. But this election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say,
oh my God,
Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
But Congress is certified. Now Congress is
Yeah, right.
Now Congress
I didn't say over, so let me see. Go to the paragraph before. Okay? I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack yesterday. Yesterday is a hard word for me.
Oh, Jesus.
Just take that. The heinous attack.
Good. Take the word yesterday, because it doesn't work with the heinous attack on our country. Say on our country. Want to say that?
No.
My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote.
We'll do it live. I mean, it's classic. It's as classic as Bill O'Reilly. We'll do it live. And now everybody sting. Oh my God. I just I can't freaking believe it. But we need to drill this into your head.
Throughout our hearings, we've provided many facts and painted a vivid picture of the events of January 6th. The violence, the human toll, both emotional and physical, including the tragic loss of life. The threats to our Constitution, the rule of law, and the danger to this nation, a nation we all love as Americans. In tonight's hearing, we've gone into great detail about the events inside the White House on January 6th. We've described how the President of the United States, who was bound by oath to the Constitution and by duty to ensure the laws are faithfully executed, took no action when the cornerstone of our democracy, a peaceful transition of power, was under attack. But it's more than that. Donald Trump summoned a violent mob and promised to lead that mob to the Capitol to compel those he thought would cave to that kind of pressure.
Right.
And when he was thwarted in his effort to lead the armed uprising, he instigated the attackers to target the vice president with violence, a man who just wanted to do his constitutional duty. So in the end, this is not, as it may appear, a story of inaction in a time of crisis, but instead it was the final action of Donald Trump's own plan to assert the will of the American people and remain in power. Not until it was clear that his effort to violently disrupt or delay the counting of the election results had failed, did he send a message to his supporters in which he commiserated with their pain, and he told them affectionately to go home. That was not the message of condemnation and just punishment for those who broke the law that we expect from a president whose oath and duty is to ensure the laws are faithfully executed. But instead, it was his newest version of stand back and stand by.
Absolutely. It was a retreat. It was just telling them, okay, this plan didn't work, so let's retreat, regroup, and we'll go back at it again. And he has never stopped. This past week, the former president of the United States called the Speaker of the House in Wisconsin, Robin Vos, and asked him to decertify Wisconsin's election. It is the summer of 2022. And Donald Trump is still making phone calls to state legislators, telling them to decertify the results of an election that happened 2 years ago. There's something wrong with him mentally. There is something wrong with the people who follow him mentally. There is something wrong with Roger Stone and Michael Flynn mentally. You've got Kevin McCarthy, who was, screaming and yelling, call them off. And, I've had enough of this guy. I'm done with this guy. But he just can't quit him. He can't quit Donald Trump. This is a horror show that just won't end. We need to send them to the cornfield and get it over with. Now, I don't know if Steve Bannon will go to jail, but Steve Bannon needs to go to jail pending the document, production and his testimony being taken under oath. I don't know if he'll be truthful. I don't know if that exposes him to perjury, and that's why he won't do it. I have no earthly idea, but these are some very ill people. Ill people, people with mental difficulties, people with problems, people who don't have any character, people who feel no duty or sense of responsibility to this country while they take an oath to defend and protect this country, don't deserve to be anywhere near the levers of power. This is what you get. This is what it looks like. It never leads to a good place, and it never will.
Mary had a little man. We believe that all men are created
equal to the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me, help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The president wanted to lead tens of thousands of people to the Capitol. I think that was enough grounds for us to be alarmed.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Secretary of Defense that day?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Did you ever hear the president ask for the National Guard? Did you ever hear the president ask for law enforcement response?
No.
I can generically say that I said, people need to be told. There needs to be a public announcement fast that they need to leave the Capitol. Just to be clear, many people suggested it. Not just me. Many people felt the same way.
Oh, I took the building. Hold.
Turn that door up. If we're moving, we need to move now.
Copy.
There were calls to say goodbye to family members, so on and so forth. It was getting, for whatever the reason was on the ground, the BP detail thought that this was about to get very ugly.
I heard my phone ringing, turned the shower off, saw it was Leader McCarthy, who I had a good relationship with. He told me it was getting really ugly over at the Capitol and said, please, anything you could do to help. And I got the sense that, they were scared.
They meaning Leader McCarthy and people on the Hill because of the violence?
That he was scared, yes.
We're not going to let these people keep us from finishing our business. So
We need you to get the building cleared, give us the okay so we can go back in session and finish up the people's business as soon as possible.
As he was gathering his things in the dining room to leave, President Trump reflected on the day's events with a White House employee. President Trump said nothing to the employee about the attack. He said only, quote, "Mike Pence let me down."
Demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defied the seat of justice. It's defiled, right? See, I can't see it very well. But this election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over.
Yeah, because he wasn't done. He wasn't done with us. He wasn't done with you. He wasn't done with those sycophants. He wasn't done with the violence. He wasn't done with any of it. He was still going to try to stay in power. He was still going to try to remain president of the United States of America. Anybody who thinks that there's any equivalent, dirty dealings on the other side of the aisle that is equal to this is insane. Mark in Costa Rica. Costa Rica.
Pura vida.
Pura vida. Where are you?
I am outside of the tourist trap of La Fortuna, living on a dairy farm, and the cows are smarter than most of the people I hear you talking about.
Yes, but they're very skinny.
No, I'm just cracking up. Unfortunately, I can't tune out completely here in Costa Rica.
Flaca.
But, but I got to tell you, I was laughing at your the way you described Pottinger and his tear-jerking final, and like BS. And, I started cracking up because, I fall for that crap.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people, the second you invoke patriotism in the American way and Superman.
I started tearing up a little.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then so thank you for shaking me up a little bit and going like, no.
Yes, no, exactly. Exactamente. No.
It's not exactamente. Randy, what are you doing there? You could broadcast.
I tell you, we sold that house. I shouldn't have done it, but we sold that house.
You have one in Costa Rica?
Yeah, but down on the Pacific side, down there in.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, just north of Uvita.
Well, it's interesting to watch from the outside in.
Yeah.
And and also to hear a cow dying for the first time.
Oh,
yeah, it was very sad.
It's because it's a skinny cow. They have no fat. They have no, yeah.
No, well, it's a dairy farm. I wouldn't live on a. I know they're nice. They only have 50 vacas per family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw some little calves today. So, it's all good. But thank you for taking me back into reality. And actually what struck me as most, and I won't take too much of your time anymore, but I will just say that it was the fact that really drilled into my head what I've known all along, or thought I did, that it's a conspiracy.
It's a huge conspiracy. Yes, it goes way, way, way back. Listen, this is exactly the plan he was going to follow had he lost in 2016. Okay.
Right. And Pottinger bailed. Right. His lieutenants bailed as soon as they saw mission wasn't accomplished.
Yes, some of them did. Right. They were waiting to see if Mike Pence could be swayed, B, removed, or killed. And when they realized that could not happen, Donald Trump just called these, miscreants into retreat, but some of them jumped ship. And Pottinger's won.
How low can you go?
That low. That's about as low as you could go. I mean, right? And still live. So there you have it.
Exactly.
We now have
Great
the answer.
To you.
You too. Pura vida.
Pura vida.
Uh-huh.
Mark's laugh is going to be the highlight of my Friday. I needed that today. Thanks, Mark.
Well, they always say, the happiest place on earth is Costa Rica. And, I have never seen, somebody who doesn't laugh in Costa Rica.
He somehow made cow death jovial. That was impressive.
Right? I saw a cow die today. Oh, they have the skinniest freaking cows and the tiniest horses. Teeny tiny. It's why I ride down there, because the horses are so little. They're so itty bitty. It's not like we have these big barely quarter horses here, and like I can't ride a quarter horse. I can't. I'm not that tall. I'm not that wide. I'm not that, and I just, I become like a weeble. I wobble, but I don't fall down. But it's just too wide of an animal for me, But the Costa Rican horses are teeny tiny. They're itty bitty, and you could just, really get a grip. You can ride. Their animals are very, very small. Very small.
Well, not that wide.
Cam in Kansas.
Hello.
Hi.
Is this Randy?
Yes, Cam. Hi.
Hi. Hey, I had a question, and it didn't have to go with the subject that's going on here in the last, couple of weeks. It's about the fraud that's in the state that Trump lost. They claim that there was so much fraud in those states. Has anybody ever stopped to look at the red states?
Yes.
I mean, if there was so much down balloting and people didn't vote for Trump and they voted down ballot, what about those red states? I think that's where all the fraud is, and nobody's investigating it. They just want to pick on the state that he lost.
So you still think there's fraud somewhere?
I think there is so much fraud in the red states. I don't think Trump even. I don't think
there's no fraud, Cam. See, and the way that we know that is that 61 courts looked at it, and there was nothing. There was nothing to see here. Move along, nothing to see.
Well, I understand it. That was in the state that he lost. What about the red state that nobody went and looked at?
Yeah. There's no fraud. There just isn't. It was a free and fair election. He won what he won. He lost what he lost. He lost in the swing states. He lost Georgia. He lost, any Pennsylvania. He lost. Wisconsin. He lost. There was no fraud. And both sides, I mean, I can't even believe I have to say this to you. Never mind. I don't even want to go there. No one thinks there was fraud except for QAnon people and people who are still hanging on to this mentally deranged crew of racist, ugly, disgusting, institutional poisoners. It's going to take us forever to clean up this mess.
At RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, this is what Fox News had on last night. I mean, the whole world, the whole entire world, really. The UK was watching this. We had friends in Canada. It was on their TV. It was on every network here. It was on CNN. It was on MSNBC, all the cable, everything. Okay, this is what Fox was doing.
So you've never been in a TV control room. There's a huge bank of monitors, and every single one of them shows everything that's on TV. And one of our producers just said that on every other channel, they're playing some kind of January 6th hearing. January 6th, because that's the biggest thing going on in America right now. Now, why are they doing that? No one wants to watch it. You know what happened on January 6th. Some guy in Viking horns wandered around on mushrooms and made weird noises, and that was kind of it. It was an insurrection in which none of the insurrectionists had guns. But it makes the people covering it feel like they lived through Vietnam. More lifestyle liberal narcissism. That's really the key to everything.
Keep pushing. Don't lose the momentum. Another officer unconscious.
Yeah, a guy in Viking horns on mushrooms wandering around. I mean, literally, we had a president of the United States, surrounded by lunatics, surrounded by Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and Michael Flynn, taken seriously. Michael Flynn was our national security advisor. This guy still has a security clearance. Do you understand And they keep on trying to tell you that this was tourists or this was Antifa or it was a guy in Viking horns who had eaten mushrooms who wandered into the Capitol. This is insanity. This is crazy. They are the most unpatriotic people I have ever come across in my life. And I've been in media my entire life. And I used to work in between Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, okay? And I'm telling you, those guys, like Sean was dumb as a rock, didn't even know the damage he was doing, but Rush did. He understood what this was all about. He understood. When he called Sandra Fluke a prostitute because she was saying that contraception should be included in Obamacare. And now we had a vote yesterday with 195 Republicans voting not to give protection, federal protection, to contraception. They voted against women being able to access birth control. They knew what they were doing. They want complete and total control over the citizenry. All you live free and die people, you're insane. You understand? They keep telling you that they're on my side, and they are literally working against everybody's individual freedoms. Everybody. 190. I tweeted yesterday. I can't even say what I tweeted because I never curse. I really don't. It's not a thing with me. I have a lot of words. I don't need to use, but sometimes that F word is like the best word and the only word. And so when you consider that 195 Republicans yesterday voted against the right to get birth control from your pharmacist or from your doctor, and it includes everything from the patch to the pill to, the sponge. I mean, everything. Tubal ligation isn't an option in their world either for women. I mean, nothing that you could possibly do to prevent a pregnancy is something that they would protect. 195. So you got to understand what their midterm strategy is. Their midterm strategy is that you go F yourself. And that's it. That's it. That's their whole strategy. F yourself and no one else. No one else. And then a Walgreens employee, I swear to God, refused to sell condoms to a couple on religious grounds. And Walgreens says, we allow that. We allow that. We allow our employees to express their religious objections. Just make the cash register ring it up and move along here. There's no place for your religious beliefs if you work in a pharmacy. There's no place for that. Just ring it up. Condoms. It was a Walgreens in Wisconsin. And now people are actually boycotting Walgreens. This is so sick and so sad and so un-American and has zero to do with why we have this country. There shall be no religious test, right? We will never establish a religion in this country. But the Supreme Court's been captured now, everybody. Just make a note of it. You have no more civil rights. You have no individual liberties anymore. They are literally being clawed back away from you. I mean, this week we had votes where, only 8 Republicans voted to protect birth control. 8 of them. I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, listen, the damage is so done, and it's been incremental. It's been happening to us since 1980. It's taken them 40, 50 years to roll back all kinds of religious, privacy rights and civil rights and voting rights and individual liberties, all kinds. And what do? They point to weapons of war, and they say that will protect. We'll protect 20 million guns. 68% of Americans don't even own a gun, okay? 85% of Americans do not own an assault weapon. But they point to that thing and they say that's where you'll express your freedom. It's always about violence for them. It's always going to be about that. They just don't know any other way to govern. They don't know any solutions to any problems that we might have. They don't care about any solutions to any problems that we might have. They just care about power. And this entire conspiracy that you saw, this entire thing, should be proof positive that in the end they will turn to violence. They will actually aggravate and insinuate violence into the American process of governing. If they can't win on the merits, then they will try to distract with cultural issues. Cultural should be read racist. And if that still fails to produce the result that they want, they will rig elections. And if that doesn't produce the result they want, they will turn to violence. Period. Religious liberty? How is it religious liberty to work at a pharmacy and then decide that you don't want to fill somebody's order at the pharmacy because you have religious objections? What about the people who are don't they have a point of view that needs to be considered in this transaction of commerce? If you're serving the public, don't you have to serve the public? I mean, how did we get so twisted up in this crap? Why are we doing this to ourselves? I don't even know. By the way, Georgia, their 6-week abortion ban went into effect yesterday, so there goes Georgia too. Bye-bye. Stacey Abrams. There.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Here's Kevin McCarthy back in the day.
I've had it with this guy. What he did is unacceptable.
I mean, he had it with this guy. He was going to quit him. He was done with him. He's used me. I'm done. I see the light. And then all of a sudden he gets sucked back in. Goes down to Mar-a-Lago. I don't know. Did he wake up with a live boy or a dead hooker? I don't know what happened to him.
Look, nobody has more experience with compromat than Donald Trump. Like, maybe he learned something from the Russians, you know?
So you think there's a PP tape of Kevin McCarthy?
I'm hoping.
I don't want to see that. I'm sorry. I could watch, like the weirdest of the weird. But no, I don't. I don't care to see any of those men in any sort of nudity or compromising positions. It's vomit inducing. Okay, it's really, really gross. David in North Miami.
Randi, Your Majesty.
Yes, my supplicant.
While we're waiting for the follow-up for season 2, I want people to brush up on their Iran-Contra hearings. How, as impressive as that was, it wasn't enough to save us from Papa Bush. Although I was smart to buy more condoms when George Rubbers Bush died. Now that condoms are contraband.
Yes.
In some places.
Depending on the religious persuasion of your cashier at Walgreens.
Perfect. Excellent.
God.
Yes. But I'm afraid that Trump is going to get away with a Valdi defense, that he had no legal responsibility to act on behalf of the Capitol any more than those policemen did to act according to their policies, their procedures. I've worked security and policy and procedure. They're great until no one actually shows up to do it. So have a good weekend, kids. Please prove me wrong. Love you.
Okay, bye. I love you too. So the police, this is what everybody's starting to understand about police. Police do not have an obligation to do anything to save you. They just don't. And we're all learning that really the hard way. But unlike the police, the president of the United States does. He does. He has an obligation as the commander-in-chief to call the National Guard when the Capitol is under attack. That's all. Pick up the phone. And he didn't do that. But this is an eye-opener that we're all learning now, that the police do not have an obligation to come and get you or save you or to get your cat out of the tree or to intervene if you're being beaten or shot at. They don't. They don't. There is no obligation for them to do anything to save your life. That's, I think, what he meant with the Uvalde, invoking Uvalde, which is a horror show. Okay, that's a cover-up too. The Secret Service thing, that's a cover-up too. You know, there was an article today in The Atlantic by a man named Rosenzweig, who was a deputy secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, and he was in charge of the Secret Service, I think in 2005 or 6, something around that era. Anyway, he wrote this piece about, it's very strange about the Secret Service wiping their phones like this. It's very strange. That's all he would say in all these many words that I had to read. And I read the whole thing, and he was saying, like, without saying it, he was saying, okay, this is a cover-up. This is a cover-up. But, you know, the police always get the police, right? They always get each other's backs. They won't testify against the other. Well, this guy was no different. So I was wondering, why did you put pen to paper? Why did you even bother, Mr. Rosenzweig, to tell me that I needed to read what you had to say about this cover-up because you were in charge of the Secret Service 10 years ago? So what he's saying is that, you know, people of skepticism, this is how he put it, that skeptical people are thinking there's a cover-up, and it is very strange. It's strange that they were going to do a factory reset on these devices to begin with, and that the factory reset was scheduled on January 26th, right after January 6th, which was even stranger because you would think that you would want contemporaneous evidence of a crime that we all saw happen on the TV. So it's very strange. Very strange. This is a cover-up of monumental proportions, and that is why there's going to be season 2 of the hearings. You see, there's going to be a second season because they have to look into the infiltration of our institutions that include national security assets like the Secret Service, who are charged with protecting the lives of extremely valuable chess pieces in the democracy. What really, really gets to me, though, not just that there was a cover-up and that they erased all this evidence and that they did it in plain sight, meaning that they were told to preserve and they didn't preserve. But her emails, she deleted 30,000 emails. Remember all that? Lock her up. Lock him up. Oh, my God. Everything they ever said that Democrats were doing is stuff they were doing themselves. Taking away your liberty, taking away civil rights, deleting, diaries, daily diaries, deleting all the phone records from the White House. Now, that was very important last night, and nobody's talking about it, and I don't know why. But that's going to be the focus, you'll see, of season 2. This entire cover-up of what was going on, what the communications really were, the stand-down orders, everything that went into making this a horror show. We don't even know the half of it yet. Pence doesn't even show up. How could he not show up? I for the life of me, now, Pat Cipollone, you know how Pat Cipollone became White House counsel, right? You remember. He defended Donald Trump in the first impeachment trial. So this is a guy who literally defended Donald Trump and then accepted a job working for this guy, knowing who this guy was, and now he has to testify, and he doesn't want to testify. Well, you know, I can't tell you what I said to the president because of executive privilege. You know, there is a crime fraud exception, you know that, Pat. You can say whatever you need to say in order to clear it up. Oh, God, we are so infiltrated. We are so infiltrated.
561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
You said during last night's hearing that the committee will also propose laws, reforms that need to be made to prevent this from happening again. What specific laws, changes, reforms do you believe are necessary?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a conversation we're engaging in. Look, I think for sure we all agree that there has to be something to the Electoral Count Act. You know, that's, if you look at 2024, if you run the same playbook that was run in 2020, you can theoretically see how you can make it succeed in 2024. The most important thing we can do is just put a roadblock up, at least in that near term. And then long term, I think we have to talk about, you know, what is it, what does really one vote mean? How do we make sure that people have faith in their vote? And how do we, you know, without violating the First Amendment, how do you penalize people from undermining this democracy? And I got to tell you, otherwise, Jim, too, it's a longer conversation, but money in politics. We've become a country where it's billionaires that are running for office and billionaires that are funding runs for office. And we can start to see we're at the beginning of what you see in some places like Russia with oligarchs driving the political system.
And there you have it. The problem. Money. Legal bribery. Capturing the Supreme Court. Shell companies and changing names of the Concord Group and turning them into, you know, the Group 85, and then Group 85 becoming the Judicial Crisis Network, and then the Judicial Crisis. I mean, it is just so ugly. It's so disgusting. This Citizens United decision, this is bizarro world that we said, oh, bribery is free speech. No, bribery is a crime, and it should be treated as such. And anybody who takes money from another while in the office of a senator, a House member, a state legislator, a governor, how it's not bribery. I mean, they've bamboozled all of us into believing, oh, well, that's just the way democracy. No, it's not. It's the way oligarchy works. It's not the way a democracy works. Joe in California.
Yeah, Randy. You know where the fraud is? The fraud is we're supposed to live in a representative democracy.
Ha! No, we're not.
And, you know, that being said, you know, in a good election, maybe 30% of the registered voters show up.
No,
and
more.
A two-party system.
It's not that bad. Don't make it worse than it is, Joe. Over 50%
vote. 95% of the people get to do because
can you hear me?
Show up at the poll.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's not true, what you're saying. That's just not true.
About 25% of the people showed up at the last election. It was a midterm in my community. Statewide.
It was a midterm? When did you have a midterm? Maybe it was a primary. Okay, you can't hear me. No, that's not true. Okay, we do have, you know, putrid voter turnout, let's say. I mean, in some countries, you know, you have 90% of the people showing up to, you know, participate in their democracy, but not here. But we do have better than 50% turnout in presidential elections. We do. Not much more than 50, but that's what we have. So let's not say it's 25% or 30%. That's just not true. The problem, though, is money, and that's why people feel like their vote doesn't matter. That's why people feel like they'll say anything on the stump, and then they get into office and they do something completely different. And the reason that happens is because of money, lobbyists. And what are they doing? They're having fundraisers for these members for their next election. And so what you have are people who may be ideologically motivated to do the right thing, and they really mean what they say on the stump, but then they get into office, and about a year into it, they realize, oh my God, I'm going to have to run again in just another year. I need to raise more money. And so that's when the lobbyists show up and they say, oh, we'll have a fundraiser for you at Charlie Palmer's for breakfast. And then we could have another one for you at, the Palm for cocktail hour. And we could have another one for you after that at a dinner party at somebody's house. And, that's how it all gets corrupted. That's how it all gets corrupted. Amir in Virginia.
Hey, Randy. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. I wanted to talk about actual January 6th. I work for an agency close by the Capitol, and we were warned weeks in advance about this day. I had contract staff working under me that don't like to miss a day. because they don't get paid if they don't show up. The rest of us had paid days off. So my staff was down there. I woke up in the morning, I turned on the TV, I said, get the hell out of there. They didn't want to go. I said, I'm calling your boss, and I'm telling them you're going to get a paid day off.
What do you do?
I don't know if I should mention the...
Well, it's the only way I can understand what you're telling me.
I work for the Library of Congress.
Okay, and that's a secret because?
Well, no, and I also work closely with the Capitol Police, who are great people, and I don't think that, we should be confused. Capitol Police have a specific mission to protect the Capitol. They're not your average jerk-off police officer that's, screwing people over. You know what I mean?
No. What are you trying to tell me?
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is that we were well ahead of time of the security threat.
The whole country knew. We were all...
Exactly.
Everybody knew.
There is no conceivable way that, anybody can sit back and these right-wingers that are like, oh, Nancy Pelosi didn't call she's supposed to... as if the lunacy and gaslighting that's happening right now in this country is just off the chart. Now, that said, the only person that can actually execute this thing, and this is a sad truth, of the Jan 6 committees is Liz Cheney. If she's not here...
Okay, I don't understand what your point is, except to say that the Capitol Police were overwhelmed by the amount of people who showed up because that was the plan, to overwhelm the Capitol Police. And the National Guard was never called into action, okay? They were directing traffic. And what's really ugly about that is that everybody knew that this was going to happen. And the president knew that this was going to happen. The Capitol Police showed up. They did as much as they could do, but they were totally overwhelmed by the number of people, and that was the strategy. And then the president sat in his dining room and watched it gleefully and hoped that they would capture or kill Mike Pence to stop the certification. That was the entire plan. And to blame Nancy Pelosi, I mean, where does Mitch McConnell come into it? He was, the majority leader in the Senate. How come we never hear it's Mitch McConnell's fault? Because even in the defense of the United States of America, it's partisan. But the partisan person who failed to defend the United States was the president, because only the president could have called up the National Guard. And he did not. So everything else is a sideshow. You understand? We all knew. Everybody knew. We were talking about January 6th. We were talking about December 14th, which was the day that the electors cast their ballots, right? I mean, we were all on pins and needles, knowing. I mean, listen, before we even voted, everyone knew that if he lost, he wouldn't leave. That was common knowledge. It was a joke at that point. It was like, it started when... Michael Cohen testified, okay? And they asked him, if Trump loses in 2020, will he leave? And Michael Cohen testified, no, he will not. He will not leave voluntarily. And everybody kind of understood that Cohen knew exactly who Trump was and was telling the American people he wasn't going to leave. He was a deranged lunatic who thought that he could keep power because he had power. And that he would use the power he had, and he would literally use violence on top of it. And that's what happened. So it doesn't matter where you worked in Northern Virginia or you worked for the Library. Everybody knew. What we didn't understand was that no one would be coming to help. And that seems to be the recurring theme now that Republicans keep putting into play. This is why you have to get rid of Abbott down there in Texas. The police do not respond to school children being slaughtered in their classrooms anymore. Okay? Beto O'Rourke's day has come. I suggest Texas, you do that. Georgia, you can't. You got to get Stacey Abrams and get rid of Jack Kemp. I mean, this is it's so bizarre how infiltrated we are with these miscreants.